He missed every birthday, every milestone, every moment that mattered. Now he's at her door asking for forgiveness. But she kept all his cards for 18 years and never opened a single one. Welcome to Shadowed Passions. Before we begin, drop a comment to tell us which city you're watching from, and please subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. Why did he walk away when she needed him most? What could possibly be worth missing your own child's life? Was it ambition, fear, or something darker he's never admitted? And here's the real question: when someone abandons you for 18 years, do they deserve a second chance? Can redemption be earned, or are some mistakes too permanent to forgive? Grace built a life without him. She raised their daughter alone through every fever, every heartbreak, every triumph. Lily learned to stop asking where Daddy was. They survived. They thrived. So when he shows up now, polished and repentant, with tears in his eyes and regret in his voice, what does he really want? Forgiveness? Absolution? Or just relief from his own guilt? And the question that haunts them all: is it ever too late to become the father you should have been? Let's go back to where it all began. Ethan Walker and Grace Miller met in a coffee shop in Brooklyn. She was working the morning shift, putting herself through nursing school. He was sitting in the corner with a laptop held together by duct tape, sketching out business plans on napkins. He had nothing. She had even less. But they had each other, and for a while that was enough. Ethan would tell her about his dreams, how he was going to build something revolutionary, a tech platform that would change everything. Grace would listen, her hand in his, believing every word. Because when you love someone, you believe in their dreams even when the world doesn't. They moved into a tiny apartment in Queens, one bedroom, peeling paint, a radiator that only worked half the time, but they called it home. Grace worked doubles at the hospital. Ethan worked from their kitchen table, living on coffee and ambition. And somehow they were happy. Then Grace got pregnant. It wasn't planned. They were terrified. They could barely afford rent, let alone a baby. But when Ethan held that positive pregnancy test, something shifted in his eyes. He looked at Grace and said, "I'm going to give you both everything, I promise." And she believed him. Lily Grace Walker was born on a Tuesday morning in March, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. Ethan was there for the birth. He cut the umbilical cord with shaking hands. He cried when he held his daughter for the first time, whispering promises only she could hear. For the first 6 months, he tried. He really did. He'd work all day, come home exhausted, but still make time to hold Lily while Grace showered or slept. He'd sing to her, off-key and awkward, songs he made up about princesses and dragons. Grace would watch from the doorway, her heart full, thinking, "This is it. This is our family." But then Ethan's company got its first real investor meeting, a venture capital firm in Manhattan. Serious money, serious people. He walked into that glass tower in a borrowed suit, and he walked out with a check for $500,000. Everything changed overnight. Suddenly, there was an office to rent, employees to hire, investors to impress, board meetings, strategy sessions, networking events that ran until midnight. At first, Grace was supportive. This was the dream, right? This was what they'd been working toward. But the late nights came later. The business trips became longer. The promises of just one more month became a pattern she couldn't ignore. Lily turned one. Ethan missed the party. He was in San Francisco closing a deal. He FaceTimed in, sang happy birthday through a screen while his daughter stared at a phone, confused about why Daddy was inside the rectangle. Grace smiled, made excuses, said he was working hard for them. But inside, something was cracking. By the time Lily was 2, Ethan had moved into a corporate apartment in the city. Closer to the office, he said, just during the week. By the time she was 3, his visits home became bi-weekly, then monthly. Grace stopped asking when he was coming home, because the answer was always the same vague promise that meant nothing. She'd watch Lily press her face against the window on Saturdays, waiting for a car that rarely came. And when it did come, Ethan would stay for an hour, distracted, checking his phone, his mind already back in the boardroom. There was a moment, one specific moment. When Grace knew it was over, Lily was 4. She'd drawn a picture at preschool, a family portrait. Stick figures holding hands. There was Mommy. There was Lily, There was their cat, Buttons. No daddy. The teacher pulled Grace aside, concerned. Is everything okay at home? Grace looked at that drawing, at the empty space where a father should be. And she realized Lily had stopped including him because she'd stopped remembering him. That night, Grace called Ethan. He was at a launch event, music and laughter in the background. She said, Lily doesn't draw you anymore. Silence. Then, what? In her pictures. Of our family. You're not in them. More silence. Grace, I'll come home this weekend, I promise. Don't promise anymore. I'm tired of explaining your promises to our daughter. She hung up, and for the first time, she let herself imagine a life where she stopped waiting. Ethan told himself he'd fix it. After the next funding round, after the company went public, after he secured their financial future. But here's the truth he couldn't face. He wasn't building an empire for them. He was building it to prove something to himself. To the kids who bullied him in school, to the father who said he'd never amount to anything, to every person who underestimated him. Grace and Lily were supposed to be his reason, but somewhere along the way, they became his excuse. And by the time he realized what he'd done, by the time he looked up from his success and reached for his family, they were gone. The divorce papers came when Lily was 5. Ethan signed them in his corner office, surrounded by everything he'd built, with a view of the city he'd conquered. And he felt nothing but empty. The breaking point came on a Wednesday. Lily was 5 years old, Grace was exhausted, and Ethan was about to make the choice that would define the rest of their lives. He came home that evening, which was rare enough, but there was something in his face. Something Grace recognized immediately. Excitement, opportunity, the look of a man about to chase something bigger. They put Lily to bed together, a small mercy. She was so happy to have both parents there, she made them read 3 stories instead of 1. When her eyes finally closed, Grace and Ethan went to the kitchen. He poured himself a drink. She knew that meant bad news. I got an offer, he said. Grace's stomach dropped. Singapore, they want me to oversee the Asian expansion. It's 18 months, maybe 2 years. But Grace, this is it. This is the opportunity that takes us to the next level. She stared at him. Singapore. I know it sounds extreme, but the equity package alone would set us up for life. Lily's college fund, a real house, everything we've been working toward. Grace felt something inside her go quiet. Dangerously quiet. We, she said softly. What? You said we've been working toward it. But I haven't seen you work toward us in 2 years, Ethan. I've seen you work toward everything else. That's not fair. Fair, her voice cracked. Do you know what Lily said to me last week? She said, Mommy, does Daddy still live with us? Our 5-year-old daughter doesn't know if you live here. Ethan looked away. This is temporary, Grace, just like everything else. I build this, we cash out, and then I'm done. I promise. Stop promising. Grace's voice rose. Stop making promises you don't keep. You promised you'd be at her birthday. You promised you'd make it to her preschool graduation. You promised last Christmas. And you showed up on December 27th when everything was over. I'm building our future. No. Grace slammed her hand on the counter. You're building your future, your empire, your legacy. And you want us to just wait in the background until you're ready to remember we exist. Silence. Ethan's jaw tightened. I need you to trust me. This is the last big push. Grace felt tears coming, but she fought them back. I don't need the next level, Ethan. I don't need equity packages or a bigger house. I need you, present, here. Not on a plane to Singapore, not in meetings until midnight. Here, with your daughter who barely knows your voice. I'm doing this for her. She doesn't want your money. She wants her father. The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Ethan ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. You don't understand what it's like out there. How competitive it is. How quickly you can lose everything if you're not constantly moving forward. I can't just stop, Grace. Not now. Not when we're this close. Grace looked at him, really looked at him, and she saw a stranger. Then go, she whispered. What? Go to Singapore, chase your next level, because clearly we're not enough to make you stay. Grace, don't do this. I'm not doing anything. You already did it. You've been leaving us for years. This is just making it official. Ethan stepped toward her. I love you. I love Lily. Everything I'm doing is for you both. Then stay. Grace's voice broke. Just stay. Choose us. For once, choose us over the opportunity. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered in Ethan's eyes. Doubt, maybe even regret. But then his phone buzzed, a message from his board chair, and Grace watched as his attention shifted, as his mind calculated trajectories and opportunities, and everything except the woman standing in front of him, begging him to stay. I have to take this deal, he said quietly. It's too big to walk away from. Grace nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face now. Then I guess we have our answer. He left 3 weeks later. The first month, he called twice a week. FaceTime with Lily, who would hold up drawings and tell him about preschool while he sat in a hotel room 12 time zones away. The second month, the calls became once a week. By the third month, it was every other week. And the conversations grew shorter, more distracted. Lily started asking less, sharing less. Ethan sent gifts, expensive toys. Dresses Lily never wore, things that arrived in boxes with his assistant's handwriting on the shipping label. Grace stopped opening them, and then came Lily's 6th birthday. Ethan promised he'd fly back, swore he wouldn't miss it. Grace wanted to believe him, but she'd learned better. The party was at 2 p.m. Lily kept watching the door. 3 p.m., still watching. 4 p.m. Grace tried to distract her with cake, with games, with anything. At 5 p.m., Lily stopped asking. At 6 p.m., when all the other kids were gone and it was just the two of them cleaning up, Lily said something that broke Grace's heart. It's okay, Mommy. I don't think Daddy likes birthdays anymore. Grace knelt down, pulled her daughter close. Baby, he loves you. He's far away. He's always far away. That night, Ethan called, 4 hours late. Full of apologies. There'd been an emergency meeting, a crisis with a vendor. He'd tried to reschedule but couldn't. Grace listened to his excuses, and she realized he'd stopped trying. The guilt was still there. The love, maybe, in some abstract way. But the effort, the sacrifice, the willingness to put them first, gone. Don't call for a while, Grace said. What? Grace, come on. I mean it. Lily needs consistency or nothing. And right now, you're giving her worse than nothing. You're giving her hope that keeps getting crushed. You can't keep me from my daughter. I'm not. You did that yourself. But I'm protecting her from waiting for someone who doesn't show up. She hung up. The calls stopped. At first, Lily asked every day, Is Daddy going to call tonight? Then every few days. Then once a week. Then, one morning, about 4 months later, Grace realized Lily hadn't asked in over 2 weeks. And when she did finally mention him, it was casual. Distant. My friend Emma's dad coaches her soccer team. Does my dad play soccer? Not, will he come to my games? Not, when will I see him? Just, does he play soccer? Like asking about a character in a book. That's when Grace knew. Lily had stopped waiting. She'd stopped wondering when he'd come home. She'd stopped including him in her drawings, her stories, her imagination of what family meant. Ethan Walker had become an abstraction, a name, a vague concept of a person who existed somewhere but didn't matter here. And that was the last time Lily asked when her father was coming home. Because in her heart, she'd already accepted the answer, never. If you've watched up till this point, comment I'm still here, so I know you're still with us. 10 years passed, 10 years of 2 completely different lives unfolding in parallel universes, connected only by a name on a birth certificate and child support payments that arrived with mechanical regularity. Let's start with Grace and Lily. They moved out of Queens. Too many memories. Too many neighbors asking where Ethan was, offering sympathetic looks Grace couldn't bear anymore. They found a small 2-bedroom in a suburb 40 minutes north. Modest, quiet, the kind of place where people minded their own business and let single mothers raise their daughters in peace. Grace went back to nursing full-time, night shifts mostly, because they paid more. Lily's grandmother would come stay over, reading her stories, making her breakfast, filling the spaces Grace couldn't physically be in. But Grace was always there in the ways that mattered. She never missed a parent-teacher conference, never missed a school play, a soccer game, a doctor's appointment. She was the mum who volunteered for field trips, who knew all of Lily's friends' names, who kept band-aids and juice boxes in her purse because she knew someone would need them. Money was tight. There were months when Grace had to choose between new shoes for Lily or fixing the car. Birthday parties were at home, not bowling alleys. Vacations meant weekend trips to her sister's place upstate, not Disney World. But they were happy. Or at least, they learned to be. Here's what Grace never did. She never poisoned Lily against her father. She could have. God knows she had every right. But when Lily asked questions, and she did less and less as the years went on, Grace kept her answers simple and neutral. "Where's Daddy?" "He's working far away, sweetheart." "Why doesn't he visit?" "He's very busy with his job." "Doesn't he miss me?" And this one hurt Grace to answer, but she did it anyway. "I'm sure he does, baby." Because Grace understood something important. Her pain was hers to carry, not Lily's. She could hate Ethan. She could rage at him in the shower, cry into her pillow at night, curse his name when the bills piled up, and Lily asked why they couldn't afford something other kids had. But she would not make Lily hate him, because that hate would live inside her daughter, would poison her ability to trust, to love, to believe people could be good. So Grace carried the bitterness alone. And she taught Lily something more valuable than wealth: resilience. By the time Lily was 10, she'd learned to cook simple meals. By 12, she was managing her own homework without reminders. By 14, she had 2 part-time jobs, babysitting and tutoring younger kids, saving money for college because she already understood that nobody was going to hand her anything. She watched her mother work double shifts and never complained. She saw her fix the broken toilet herself with YouTube videos rather than call a plumber they couldn't afford. She witnessed strength in its quietest, most persistent form. And she became it. Teachers loved Lily, not because she was the smartest kid in class, though she was sharp, but because she had something rare: grit mixed with kindness. She helped struggling classmates. She stood up to bullies. She organized fundraisers for families who'd lost homes to fires or illness. Grace would hear from other parents, "Your daughter is remarkable. You must be so proud." And Grace was. But there was always a shadow. A question Lily never asked, but Grace could see in her eyes sometimes, late at night when they sat together watching TV. Why wasn't I enough to make him stay? Grace saw it. But she didn't know how to answer something Lily never said out loud, so they just kept moving forward. Mother and daughter against the world. Now let's talk about Ethan. His company went public when Lily was 8. The IPO made headlines. Forbes did a cover story. The boy from Brooklyn who built $1 billion dream. Ethan stood on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, bell in hand, cameras flashing, board members shaking his hand. Champagne corks popping. He should have felt triumphant. Instead, he felt hollow. He'd achieved everything he set out to do. The mansion in Connecticut, the penthouse in Manhattan, the cars, the watches, the invitations to events where celebrities treated him like an equal. He dated beautiful, successful women who looked perfect on his arm at galas and fundraisers. None of them lasted more than a few months. Because here's what Ethan learned too late: success is a terrible substitute for love. He'd come home, and by home I mean whatever empty apartment or hotel suite he was currently occupying, and there'd be nothing. No laughter, no one asking about his day. No small voice calling "Daddy" when he walked through the door. Just silence. Expensive, immaculate silence. He told himself he was too busy for regret. Threw himself deeper into work, acquired more companies, launched new ventures, built the empire bigger. But late at night, alone in bed, he'd think about them. Grace, Lily. He'd scroll through old photos on his phone, pictures from before everything broke. Grace laughing at something stupid he'd said. Baby Lily asleep on his chest, the 3 of them in that tiny Queen's apartment, broke and happy. He'd start to text Grace, delete it, start again, delete it. What could he possibly say? Sorry I chose everything else over you, sorry I missed our daughter's entire childhood for stock options. The words felt pathetic, insufficient. So he said nothing. The child support payments went out automatically. Generous amounts, more than required. As if money could substitute for presence, he told himself they were better off without him. That Grace had probably moved on, found someone better. that Lily had a real father figure now, someone who actually showed up. This thought tortured him, but it also let him off the hook. If they'd replaced him, then his absence didn't matter as much, right? They were fine. They didn't need him. He almost believed it. There were moments when reality would crash through his delusions, like when he was at a restaurant and saw a father helping his daughter cut her steak, laughing at something she said, fully present in that moment. Or when a colleague mentioned coaching his son's little league team, and Ethan realized he didn't even know if Lily played sports. Or when he was giving a keynote speech about success, and someone asked, "What's your greatest accomplishment?" And his mind went blank because the only thing that mattered, he'd destroyed. His therapist, because of course he had a therapist now, asked him once, "Why don't you reach out?" "It's too late." Too late for what? Too late to matter. Too late to fix it. She's probably 15 now. She doesn't even remember me. So you're protecting yourself from rejection by rejecting her first. Ethan had no answer for that. The truth, he was terrified. Terrified that if he showed up, Lily would look at him with those eyes, Grace's eyes, and see him for what he really was. A coward who chose the easy path, who hid behind work and ambition because being a real father, a real partner, required vulnerability he didn't know how to access. So the years kept passing. Lily turned 16. Ethan sent a card through his assistant. Generic. "Happy birthday, love Dad." She never responded. He told himself that was answer enough. But then something happened that changed everything. Ethan's father died, the man who told him he'd never amount to anything. The man whose approval Ethan had spent his entire life chasing, even after he was already gone. At the funeral, Ethan stood by the casket, surrounded by distant relatives he barely knew, and he realized something that broke him. He'd become his father, absent, emotionally unavailable, choosing everything except the people who needed him. The cycle he swore he'd break. He'd perpetuated it. And his daughter, his Lily, had grown up with the same wound he'd carried his whole life, abandoned by a father who was too broken to show up. That night, in his hotel room after the funeral, Ethan made a decision. He was going to find them. Not to ask for forgiveness, he didn't deserve that, but to tell them the truth, to take responsibility, to stop hiding. And if Lily slammed the door in his face, he'd earned that too. But he had to try, because the alternative, living the rest of his life as a ghost in his own daughter's story, was no longer something he could bear. He hired a private investigator, not to spy, just to find them, to confirm they were okay. The report came back 2 weeks later. Grace Miller, still single, still nursing, living in the same modest house in that quiet suburb. And Lily, 18 now, high school senior, 4.0 GPA, full scholarship to Columbia University, president of 3 clubs, volunteer at a women's shelter. Ethan read that report over and over. She'd done it all without him, became extraordinary without a father to guide her, and he felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Pride and devastating regret. His little girl, the one he'd held in the hospital 18 years ago, wasn't little anymore. She was a woman, strong, accomplished, good. Everything he'd hoped she'd become, and he'd missed all of it, every moment, every milestone, every triumph and struggle that had shaped her into who she was. He'd traded those irreplaceable moments for money that meant nothing and success that felt like ashes in his mouth. There was one more detail in the report that caught his attention. Grace never remarried, never even seriously dated, according to the investigator. All those years Ethan had told himself she'd moved on, found someone better. She hadn't. She'd raised their daughter alone. By choice or by circumstance, it didn't matter. There was no replacement father, no man who'd stepped in to be what Ethan failed to be. Just Grace, just Lily, just the two of them against the world, and somehow they'd won. Now Ethan was standing outside their house at dusk, his hand hovering over the doorbell, wondering if redemption was something you could ask for, or if some doors, once closed, stay that way forever. The doorbell never rang that night, because just as Ethan raised his hand, his vision blurred, his chest tightened, and the world tilted sideways. He woke up in a hospital room 3 days later. Massive panic attack, the doctors said, severe exhaustion, dangerously high blood pressure. His body had finally done what his mind refused to do. It forced him to stop. The board put him on immediate medical leave, non-negotiable, 3 months minimum. For the first time in 20 years, Ethan Walker had nowhere to run. No meetings to hide behind, no deals to distract him, just silence, and himself, and the crushing weight of everything he'd been avoiding. His assistant brought him files to sign, business continuity plans, transition documents, and tucked in between the corporate paperwork was something else, a folder marked Personal Financial. Ethan almost threw it aside, but something made him open it. Inside were bank statements, records going back 18 years, monthly transfers, child support payments, every single one documented. But there was something wrong with them. Every payment had been returned. Not once, not twice, every single month for 18 years. Ethan stared at the pages, his hands shaking. Grace had never cashed a single check. Not when Lily was a baby and they were living in that tiny apartment. Not when she was working double shifts. Not when a financial cushion could have meant the difference between struggling and stability. She'd sent them all back. Why? Ethan called his accountant, his voice barely steady. The child support payments, the ones to Grace Miller. Why were they returned? Silence on the other end. Sir, we noted that in the correspondence years ago. Ms. Miller sent a letter stating she didn't want financial support, just presence. And since that wasn't being provided, she preferred to handle things herself. The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. She didn't want his money. She never wanted his money. She wanted him. And when she couldn't have that, she chose to do it alone rather than accept compensation for his absence. Grace had raised their daughter on a nurse's salary, working nights, scraping by, because accepting his money felt like accepting that absence was acceptable. It wasn't about pride. It was about principle. You don't get to buy your way out of parenthood. Ethan sat in that hospital bed, surrounded by machines monitoring his failing body, and something inside him shattered completely. But there was more. His assistant, Maria, had been with him for 15 years. Loyal, efficient. She knew things about his life he'd forgotten himself. She came to visit him during his second week in the hospital, brought flowers, brought his laptop, which he ignored. And she brought something else, a small cardboard box. Mr. Walker, I probably should have mentioned this years ago, but it felt personal. And you never asked. She set the box on his lap. Every year on your daughter's birthday, you had me send a card. Do you remember? Ethan nodded slowly. Generic cards, signed by Maria because his handwriting was terrible, sent through the mail because he was too afraid to deliver them himself. They were never returned to sender, Maria said quietly, so I assumed she received them. She did. I think she did. I never heard otherwise. Maria looked at him with something between pity and frustration. Last month, I had to contact Ms. Miller about updating the trust fund paperwork for Lily's college, and we got to talking. She mentioned something that I thought you should know. She opened the box. Inside were envelopes, dozens of them. Birthday cards, still sealed, organized by year. Grace sent these back? I don't understand. No, sir. Lily kept them, every single one, but she never opened them. Ethan's breath caught. Grace said Lily has a box in her room, under her bed. She's kept every card, every letter, every scrap of contact you ever attempted. But she's never opened a single one. Why? Because opening them would mean hoping. And Lily learned a long time ago that hoping for you hurt too much. The words hung in the sterile hospital air. Ethan picked up one of the cards. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold it. This one was from her 10th birthday, the year he'd been in London closing the European expansion deal. The card had never been opened. The seal was still intact. She kept them, he whispered. She kept them all. Grace said when Lily was 12, she almost threw them away. Had them in a trash bag, ready to go. But at the last second, she pulled them back out, put them in a box, slid it under her bed where she wouldn't have to see it, but couldn't quite let it go. Maria's voice was gentle but firm. Mr. Walker, your daughter didn't forget you. That might have been easier. But she didn't forget. She carried you with her, the absence of you, the weight of you. Every birthday, Every milestone, she had to decide whether to open that card or not, whether to let you back in, even in that small way. And every time, she chose protection over hope. Ethan felt tears streaming down his face. She learned how to live without you, Maria continued, but she never stopped being your daughter. She never stopped wondering if maybe this year you'd actually show up. And when you didn't, she'd add another card to the box and close the lid and keep going. I didn't know. You didn't ask. The truth of that settled over him like a weight. He'd spent 18 years assuming Grace had moved on, assuming Lily had forgotten, assuming his absence had become normal, acceptable, just the way things were. But the reality was so much more painful. They hadn't moved on. They'd adapted. They'd survived. But every card in that box was evidence of a wound that never fully healed. A daughter who kept pieces of a father she couldn't have, couldn't open, couldn't quite throw away. That night, alone in his hospital room, Ethan did something he hadn't done since he was a child. He prayed. Not to God exactly. He wasn't sure he believed in that anymore. But to the universe. To fate. To whatever force governs second chances. He prayed for the courage to face what he'd done. He prayed for the strength to hear no, if that's what Lily needed to say. And he prayed that somehow, despite everything, it wasn't too late to at least try to be the father she'd kept in a box under her bed. The father she couldn't open but couldn't throw away. 3 weeks later, Ethan was released from the hospital. His doctors gave him strict orders: reduce stress, delegate responsibility, change his entire life, or the next heart episode would kill him. He sold his penthouse, put his shares in a trust, stepped down from day-to-day operations, and he drove to that quiet suburb 40 minutes north of the city. This time, he wasn't going to stand outside wondering. This time, he was going to knock. And whatever happened next, he'd finally face it. Because his daughter had kept him in a box for 18 years. The least he could do was open the door. The door opened. Grace stood there, older but still beautiful. Her hair had threads of grey she didn't bother hiding, lines around her eyes from years of smiling through exhaustion. She looked at Ethan for a long moment. "You look terrible," she said. "I was in the hospital. Heart problems." "Well, not my heart exactly. Panic attack. Burnout. My body finally quit on me." "I'm sorry to hear that." Her tone was neutral, not cold, not warm, just factual. "Can I come in?" Grace hesitated, then stepped aside. The house was small but immaculate, photos everywhere. Lily at various ages, Grace and Lily at the beach, at graduations, at birthday parties. A whole life documented on these walls. A life Ethan wasn't in. "She's upstairs," Grace said. "I should warn you, I told her you might come by. She's processing." "Does she want to see me?" "I don't think she knows what she wants, but she agreed to meet you. That's something." Grace called up the stairs. "Lily, he's here." Footsteps, slow, deliberate. And then she appeared at the top of the stairs. Ethan's breath stopped. She looked like Grace, same eyes, same cheekbones. But she had his stubborn chin, his serious expression. She was beautiful, and she was a complete stranger. Lily came down the stairs with the careful composure of someone who'd rehearsed this moment in her head 1,000 times. "Hello," she said. Not dad, not father, just hello. "Hi," Ethan managed. God, you're all grown up." 18 years will do that." Her voice was steady, no emotion, no anger, no joy, just observation. Grace looked between them. "I'll give you two some privacy. I'll be in the kitchen if you need me." She left, but Ethan could feel her presence hovering protectively nearby. Lily sat on the couch, gestured for Ethan to sit across from her, like a job interview. "You wanted to talk," she said. "I did. I do. I—" Ethan realized he'd rehearsed nothing, all those speeches he'd imagined, and now his mind was blank. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," Lily nodded. "Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Anything. Yell at me. Tell me I'm a terrible father. Tell me you hate me." Lily studied him with those calm, measured eyes. "I don't hate you." Relief flooded through Ethan. Then Lily continued, "You're not a bad person. You're just a stranger." The words hit harder than any anger could have. "Lily, I know I wasn't there. I know I missed everything. But I want to change that. I want to know you. I want to be part of your life. Why? The question was so simple, so direct. Because you're my daughter. Biologically, yes. But fatherhood is more than genetics, isn't it? It's showing up, being present, doing the work, and you didn't do any of that. Her voice wasn't cruel, it was just factual, like she was presenting evidence in a debate. I was building something, Ethan said weakly. I thought I was securing your future. You were securing your future, let's be honest. Mum worked doubles as a nurse and still made every single one of my school plays. You built a $1 billion company and couldn't make a single birthday party. I know that now. I was wrong. Okay. That word again, so neutral it hurt. Lily, please, tell me how to fix this. She looked at him with something that might have been pity. You can't. That's what you don't understand. You can't get those years back. You can't unmiss the moments. I don't have memories of you teaching me to ride a bike, or helping with homework, or scaring away boyfriends, or any of the things fathers do. I have memories of wondering why I wasn't enough to make you stay. Ethan felt tears streaming down his face. You were enough. You were always enough. I was the one who wasn't. I know that now. Therapy helps. She said it so matter-of-factly. Of course she'd been in therapy. But here's the thing, Lily continued. I'm not angry anymore. I was for years. But anger is exhausting, so I let it go. I accepted that I have a father who chose not to be a dad, and I built a life that doesn't have a dad-shaped hole in it anymore. I filled that space with other things, other people, my own strength. I'm so proud of you, Ethan whispered. Lily's composure cracked just slightly. You don't get to be proud. You didn't earn that. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Ethan spoke. You're right, I don't. But I am anyway. And I know that doesn't matter. I know showing up now doesn't erase 18 years. But I'm here. And I want to know you, even if you never want to know me back. Lily sat back, considering. What do you want from this? Honestly. I don't know. Forgiveness, maybe. But I don't deserve that. I guess I want to stop being a stranger. Even if I can never be your dad, maybe I could be someone in your life. Someone you don't have to keep in a box under your bed. Lily's eyes widened. You know about the cards. Maria told me. Your mom mentioned them. Lily looked away. I don't know why I kept them. I never opened them. But you didn't throw them away. No, I didn't. Why? Lily was quiet for a long time. Because throwing them away felt like closing a door forever, and keeping them felt like leaving it open, even just a crack. I didn't want to need you, but some part of me, some stupid, hopeful part, kept thinking maybe one year you'd actually show up. Maybe one birthday, it wouldn't just be a card. I should have shown up. Yeah, you should have. More silence. Then Lily said something that surprised them both. I'm going to Columbia in the fall, full scholarship. I'm studying social work. I want to help kids who grow up in broken homes find their way. That's incredible. It's because of you, actually. Or the lack of you. I know what it feels like to have a parent choose other things. So I want to help kids who feel that way too. I want to be the person who shows up for them. Ethan felt his heart break and swell simultaneously. His absence had shaped her, not in the way he'd hoped, by providing financial security, but by teaching her resilience, empathy, the importance of presence. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. Sure. Would you be willing to have coffee sometime? Just to talk. No pressure, no expectations. Just getting to know each other. Lily considered this. Maybe, I don't know yet. I need to think about it. That's fair. But I can tell you this, if you want any kind of relationship with me, it has to be consistent. I'm not interested in sporadic effort. Either you're in, actually in, or you're not. I don't do halfway anymore. I understand. Do you? Because you said that before. You made promises before, and you broke every single one. I did, and I can't prove I'm different now with words, only with time, with showing up, over and over, until maybe you believe it. Lily stood up. I'm going to my room now. This was a lot. Of course, thank you for seeing me. She walked toward the stairs, then paused. The cards. I'm going to open them now, all of them, not for you, for me. Because I need to stop carrying them around. Okay. And if they're just generic happy birthday messages you had your assistant write, I'm going to be really disappointed. Ethan winced. They probably are. I'm sorry. Of course they are. She disappeared upstairs. Grace emerged from the kitchen. That went better than I expected, she said. Did it? She basically called me a stranger. You are a stranger, but she didn't slam the door. That's something. Grace poured 2 cups of coffee, handed one to Ethan. They sat at the kitchen table, the same kind of cheap IKEA table they'd had in their Queen's apartment 20 years ago. You never cashed the checks, Ethan said. No. Why? Grace looked into her coffee. Because it felt like a transaction, like you were paying me to raise her so you didn't have to. And I didn't want your money. I wanted you. And when I couldn't have that, I wanted to know that I did it on my own. That Lily grew up because of my work, my sacrifice. Not yours. That was pride. Maybe. Or maybe it was dignity. Ethan nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I never hated you, Grace said. Really? I hated myself enough for both of us. I was angry, hurt, devastated. But hate? That requires energy I needed for other things. For raising our daughter, for surviving. Hate is a luxury I couldn't afford. So what did you feel? Grace thought about this. Disappointment, grief, and eventually, nothing. I just stopped feeling anything about you at all. That was worse than hate, honestly. Because hate means you still matter. Nothing means you don't. The words settled between them. When did that happen? Ethan asked quietly. When Lily was about 7, she stopped asking about you, and I realized I'd stopped wondering what you were doing. Stopped imagining you coming back. Stopped waiting. You moved on. I moved forward. There's a difference. Grace looked at him with clear, steady eyes. I never remarried, never even dated seriously. Not because I was pining for you, but because I was complete without you. Lily and I, we were a whole unit. We didn't need anyone else to make us complete. It wasn't about you at all anymore. It was about us. I wasted it all, Ethan said. Everything I built, everything I achieved. It means nothing. That's not true. It means you're successful, rich, accomplished. Those are real things. They're empty things. Maybe, but they're yours. You chose them. You can't retroactively unchoose them and pretend you were forced. Her honesty was brutal and necessary. So what happens now? Ethan asked. That's up to Lily and you. I'm not mediating this. She's an adult. You're an adult. Figure it out. What about us? What about you and me? Grace smiled sadly. There is no you and me. There hasn't been for a very long time. I know, but we have a daughter together. We'll always be connected. We'll always be Lily's parents. That's different than being connected. You can coexist without being close. Do you forgive me? Grace considered this. I don't think about you enough to hold a grudge. Does that count as forgiveness? It was perhaps the most devastating thing anyone had ever said to him. Not anger, not hatred. Just indifference. He'd become irrelevant. I should go, Ethan said, standing. Grace walked him to the door. For what it's worth, she said, I'm glad you came. Not for me, for Lily. She needs closure. Whether that closure is a relationship with you or just confirmation that you're not worth the space in her head, I don't know. But she needs something. And what do you need? Grace smiled. Nothing from you. I have everything I need. And Ethan believed her. As he walked to his car, he looked back at the house. A light turned on in an upstairs window. Lily's room. He imagined her sitting on her bed, opening 18 years of cards, reading generic messages he'd had his assistant write, seeing the emptiness of his efforts, and he hoped, desperately hoped, that somewhere in those cards, in that gesture of keeping them even unopened, there was a thread he could follow back to her. Because Grace was right about one thing. Love doesn't always end in reunion. Sometimes it ends in understanding. Understanding that some doors close forever. And understanding that some doors, against all logic and history, might open just a crack. Just enough to let a stranger start becoming something more. just enough for redemption to be possible. Not guaranteed, not deserved, but possible. And for the first time in 18 years, Ethan Walker had to learn to live with possible. Because certain was gone, and maybe, just maybe, possible was enough. 2 weeks later, Ethan received a text from Lily. Coffee, Saturday, noon. Not dad, not father, just an invitation, clinical, careful. Saturday came, they sat across from each other at a coffee shop. I opened the cards, Lily said, all of them. And? They were exactly what I expected. Generic. Your assistant's handwriting. But here's what I realized. Those cards weren't for me. They were for you. So you could tell yourself you tried without actually trying. Ethan couldn't argue. I've been carrying you around my whole life, Lily continued, the absence of you, the weight of you, and I'm done. Not done with you, done carrying you like a burden. What does that mean? It means we start from zero. You're not my dad, you're Ethan, a man who shares my DNA, and I'm Lily, a woman willing to meet for coffee occasionally and see if there's anything there. No pressure to be a family, we're not forcing it. I can work with that. Can you? Because it means no grand gestures, no guilt trips, just showing up consistently. And don't promise, just do. Promises don't mean anything to me anymore. They talked for an hour, nothing profound, just two strangers getting to know each other. When they left, Lily didn't hug him. She shook his hand. Ethan watched her walk away, back to where Grace was waiting. He didn't chase, didn't call out, didn't force more than she was willing to give. For the first time in 18 years, he accepted what he'd earned. Not a reunion, not a happy ending, just a beginning. Fragile and uncertain. He didn't get his family back, but he learned something harder. Redemption isn't about getting what you want, it's about accepting what you deserve. Sometimes what you deserve is just a chance. Not forgiveness, not love. Just the possibility that if you show up consistently, something might grow from the ruins. Or it might not. And that has to be okay too, because redemption doesn't always mean returning. Sometimes it means letting go. Ethan Walker built an empire and lost everything that mattered. Now he's building something smaller, more fragile, more real. A connection with a daughter who doesn't need him. It's not much, but it's built on truth instead of promises. On presence instead of potential. That's redemption. Not the kind they make movies about, but the kind that actually changes you. So let me ask you something. What would you have done in his place? Would you knock on that door knowing you might only get a handshake and occasional coffee? Would you accept that some mistakes can't be undone? Do you believe people can change? Do you believe redemption is possible for someone who missed their child's entire life? Or do you believe some chances only come once? Let me know in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and we'll meet in the next story.